Hello Internet, it's Angel Michael and welcome to today's video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing the ESPN Tournament Challenge for 2019. So let's begin. So if you are new to this channel, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more of these random videos, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitch as I go live there on Fridays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And follow me on Twitter at IG chef_AndrewV. Now let's get into today's video. So today we are going to be filling out this little bracket for ESPN. This is obviously the little tournament that they have every year during March leading into April, where they compile the best of the 64 best teams in college basketball of 2019 and find out who is the champion of 2019. So here we are going to be filling out the bracket, and here and there I'll probably have to like move my camera so that way when we fill out one side I can have my camera on one side and then on the other side I can move it there. So let's start off with the east side since I already have my webcam there. So we have Duke versus NDS NCC, which I think this is North Dakota State and North Carolina Central. I don't think there's going to be an upset here, honestly. Like, I don't think there's going to be I honestly don't think this is going to be an upset. So I think Duke is going to win this easily. Then we get on to the 8 and 9 seed. Now the 8 and 9 seeds are always kind of tricky because either team could win and it could be a toss up there. And I saw some people talking about UCF and VCU. And when I was watching, regular basketball this year, I saw VCU doing pretty well. UCF, I don't know if I was kind of certain about them, but honestly, I think VCU could get far. UCF, I haven't seen too much from them, but to be safe, I'm going to go probably with VCU here. And then we have Mississippi State versus Liberty. Now, my friend is an Ole Miss person, and I used to be an Ole Miss person, but my mom's a Mississippi State fan, so... And I'm an LSU person, so honestly, I don't care either way. And we have Mississippi State versus Liberty, and Mississippi State's been rolling. They've played some really good games here and there. Sometimes they've taken some tough losses in the SEC. And honestly, I feel like they could probably do good against Liberty. Liberty's not the best basketball team around, so I'm going to be safe and go with Mississippi State. And then we have Virginia Tech versus St. Louis. Now, I know Virginia Tech's been pretty solid, but St. Louis, I've heard a couple of good things about them, and I've heard that they've been pretty good in terms of everything that's been going on. St. Louis has been popping up a little bit. So I don't think I want to go with the upset just yet. Then again, I could see it, so I think to use one of my upsets, I'm probably going to go with St. Louis and be crazy here. And then we have Maryland and Belmont or Temple. And honestly, I think Maryland's going to win this easily, no question. I think Temple's alright. Belmont, not really too for sure. Then LSU versus Yale. I mean, when I saw the announcement that LSU was playing Yale, I thought that we were going to get, maybe an interesting matchup here. But LSU versus Yale does seem to be very, very interesting. And hopefully LSU, without our coach, hopefully we can get a little far. I don't see us going too far, though. I don't see us getting at least to the Final 8. I do see us probably getting to the Sweet 16, which I'll talk about that later. So we'll get to that. Now we have Louisville versus Minnesota. And honestly, I think I call it Louisville. I think Louisville has a good chance against Minnesota. And I think Louisville just barely made it into the Big Ten tournament. And really, I think they had a good chance. So I think at Louisville, is going to go on. And then for the East, we have Michigan State versus Bradley. Now, I didn't see the Bradley game. I think they played St. whoever. And I think Bradley did all right. But Michigan State, I think, has been doing pretty well. But they've taken some really tough losses in the Big Ten. And honestly think that they may or may not be getting far. But then again, Bradley did do pretty well. But honestly, I can see Bradley doing pretty fine. So I think for another kind of upset, I'm going to go with Bradley. And I do think that when they won, I did see Bradley kind of hanging on, but they were holding their lead. So if Bradley could get a lead against Michigan State, they might be able to win that game. And so what I'm going to do now is complete this side and get to our Final Four here. And I'll move down there, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So now we're going to finish this side up with East. Duke versus VCU. I think Duke is going to do very well, and I think Duke is easily going to move on to the top 8. the Sweet 16, I'm sorry. You have Mississippi State versus St. Louis. Mississippi State's going to easily get on. I think St. Louis is going to win that first game against Virginia Tech. But against Mississippi State, I don't see them doing far with that. Because Mississippi State does seem to be a more solid team. And so now we have Maryland versus LSU. Now, Maryland has been pretty dang good. And for what I've seen, and with LSU, if they can win this first game against Yale without their coach, I mean, they have won a couple games without their coach. And honestly, I could see LSU probably winning against Maryland, but I don't see that happening really. So I'm going to go with my heart and just go LSU. I want to see them go a little bit far. Then with Louisville versus Bradley, I'm going to probably pick Louisville. I mean, Louisville against Bradley, I think Louisville is a bit more of a solid team than Bradley is. And with Louisville, I see them struggling a little bit, but I think they can, topple over Bradley with this one. Duke and Mississippi State, I think Duke is easily going to keep going. So Duke is going to go here. And LSU versus Louisville, I think LSU might have their final stop here. This might be their final stance. And I think they can hold on and go against Duke. But I don't think LSU is going to do me any favors and win against Duke. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm sorry to say that, LSU. I know that's my favorite team, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I think Duke is going to go to the Final Four. So with the East wrapped up, let's move on to the West. So when we move on to the West, we have Gonzaga and FDU and PV. I think there's a pre-review, I believe. Honestly, I don't think this is going to be an upset either. And I picked Gonzaga to win the tournament last year, and I think they made it to the top 8. Or if not, I don't think they got upset. So I think Gonzaga can do a good job here. And then with Syracuse and Baylor, I've seen Syracuse play, and every year Syracuse is a pretty standard good team, and Baylor is really shaky. I mean, you can't really depend on Baylor to do anything, and I think to be a safe bet, I am going to go with Syracuse over Baylor. With Marquette and Murray State, Marquette has been fired this year, and I think Marquette is amazing, and so I think Marquette's going to go over Murray State. Then Florida State versus Vermont. Florida State played that game against Duke, and Florida had a good lead, but they lost it. And so against Vermont, I think Florida State can get a lead, and I think they can easily keep this one. So I think it's going to be Florida State versus Marquette there. Then we have Buffalo versus Arizona State and St. Joe. I don't know what SJU actually is. I'm probably going to butcher that. But I think Buffalo is a pretty solid team. I've seen Buffalo play once, and I did think that Buffalo was a pretty standard good team. And then against Texas Tech and North Kentucky, I think Texas Tech is by far a really solid team. I've seen them play too, and they are really good there. Then we have Nevada versus Florida. And I've seen Nevada play a couple of times, and they've been all right. But Florida has beaten LSU, but that's pretty much the only team Florida beats is LSU. And that's just one of the things that annoys me, is that every time we play Florida, Florida beats us no matter what. But honestly, since we're not playing Florida, I think Nevada's going to win this one. And Michigan versus Montana, I think Michigan's easily going to win this one, honestly. Like, I see all this going pretty well. Now, with Gonzaga and Syracuse, I do think that Syracuse could make a run for it and beat Gonzaga, but I don't think it's going to happen this time. I think Gonzaga is going to move on to the next round, to the Sweet 16. Now, with Marquette and Florida State, I think Marquette is a solid team. They've been in the top 10 a lot this year. Florida State getting as far as they did. I think that Florida State is a little bit weaker than Marquette, and Marquette seems to be doing what they're doing. So I'm going to pick them to move on. And then we have Buffalo and Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech could get the job done at Buffalo, but Buffalo can get some wild things done from what I've seen. So I think Texas Tech's going to move on. And then Nevada and Michigan, this is going to be a toss-up here. And from what I've seen with Nevada and Michigan, I think the best bet I can probably go for is to do Michigan, but there could be an upset with Nevada. So honestly, I could see this going either way, but I think to be safe, I'm going to go with my brain's telling me to go Nevada because that could be an interesting turn of events there. But I think Michigan easily is going to probably go there. And so we have Gonzaga and Marquette. Marquette could do really well here, but I think Gonzaga this time around has been pretty solid. And I think by far Gonzaga is going to keep going. And they're going to easily kick out Marquette. And then Texas Tech versus Michigan. I think I see Texas Tech getting into the top 8. And I think here I'm going to be safe and go Gonzaga as well here. And we're going to Duke and Gonzaga here. And to finish this part off, I think I am going to have Duke beat Gonzaga and make it to the championship. Now let me move my webcam and we are going to get to the South. So now we're going to continue with the South and the Midwest. So we have the South version. And now we have Virginia versus Gardner-Webb. And I think Gardner-Webb is going to be just fine. I think they're going to be a pretty solid team. And Gardner-Webb's not going to upset them. Because Virginia, like I've seen, they have been very, very, very good this year. And then keeping their top 5 seed a lot. So I think Virginia's going to do just good. Ole Miss versus Oklahoma now. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for what I'm about to say. But Ole Miss can win games. But when it comes to tournaments, when it comes to championships, I think Ole Miss every year has something going on and they let people down. But Oklahoma, for the past couple of years, Oklahoma's been alright. But this year, I haven't seen a whole lot of good things happen with Oklahoma. And I think out of these two, which one would I prefer? I could probably see Ole Miss being better than Oklahoma in this round. So I think Ole Miss is going to move on. And then what we have here is we have Wisconsin versus Oregon. And I think out of these two, Wisconsin's really good, so I'm going to choose them. Kansas State versus UC Irvine. I think Kansas State, I did see Kansas State play one game, and by far they were beating up whoever they were playing, and Kansas State was pretty good. So I'm going to Kansas State here. And we have Villanova versus St. Mary. Honestly, I think Villanova is a... I mean, they could get a lead easily, but against St. Mary, I think Villanova, every year, they're like Ole Miss. Like, Villanova can get a solid early lead, but they can get upset very easily. So, this year, I still don't see Villanova getting far, so I'm going to pick St. Mary's over them, make that an upset. And then we have Purdue versus Old Dominion. Purdue easily is going to move on, and I think they are going to do just fine there. Then Cincinnati versus Iowa. This could be a toss-up. I've seen Iowa do really good in their division in the Big Ten. And honestly, I think that they are going to be just fine. But Cincinnati, I do believe, in the American Conference is pretty alright. I haven't seen anything from Cincinnati or Iowa. But from what I can tell, Iowa can be pretty good. And I think Iowa can win this one. And then Tennessee versus Colgate. I think Tennessee is going to be just fine. They're going to put on a good show from however long they're going. So we go back up here with Virginia and Ole Miss. I think everyone, including Ole Miss fans, is going to see Ole Miss losing. That's just a no-brainer there. Wisconsin versus Kansas State. I can see Kansas State doing just fine. And I can see them going to the Sweet 16. I think St. Mary's and Purdue. I think Purdue's going to do fine. And we're going to get a Purdue versus Tennessee matchup because I think Tennessee is going to easily handle Iowa. Now for this part, Virginia and Kansas State. I think Virginia is a really, really good team. They're going to easily make it to the top 8. And Purdue and Tennessee, I could see them doing very well. So here I am probably going to go with probably Tennessee. I mean, Purdue's pretty good. They've been in the top 10, top 15 a lot. So, but I think Tennessee, with their number 1 seed run overall, I think Tennessee could easily do fine and make it to the top 8. And here I still think, I am beginning to think that if it's Virginia and Tennessee, we're going to get a really good matchup here. And I think, to go with my gut, I think Tennessee can handle Virginia. And I think Tennessee can do just fine. With that being said, I'm going to pick Tennessee to go to the Final Four. I mean, I could easily see Virginia doing it as well. But Tennessee, I feel like, has a bit of a better chance making it that far. And so now we finally wrap up with the Midwest. So North Carolina versus Iona. I think North Carolina could easily beat Iona at this rate. North Carolina is really good this year. They've been in the top 5, top 10 a lot. And so when we go to Utah State versus Washington, a lot of people have been picking Washington over Utah State, but I kind of disagree because I've seen their rankings. And Washington's been a little bit worse than Utah State, and Utah State's been alright. So I'll pick Utah State over them. And here with North Carolina versus Utah State, I'm going to easily pick North Carolina here. And then Auburn and New Mexico, I think they are going to basically have this matchup. Auburn and New Mexico State. Auburn's been pretty alright. I think they beat Tennessee, or they played them and they didn't do quite that well. I don't remember. Kansas versus Northeastern. Kansas is always one of those teams where you could easily see them in the tournament every single year. But this year, I don't think that Kansas is going to get quite that far. And I could see Auburn beating Kansas. So I'm going to pick Auburn here. And so we're going to keep going. We have Iowa State versus Ohio State. I'm going with Iowa State because I don't think Ohio State's that good this year in terms of basketball. Obviously, they're good in football, but not basketball. And Iowa State, I think, is pretty solid from what I've seen in the standings. Houston versus Georgia State. I've seen Houston doing pretty well. Like, very early on in the season, LSU played Houston, and Houston won that game. So, Houston, I think, is going to be really good in the tournament. Wofford and Seton Hill. I don't think that Seton Hill is, I don't know about Seton Hall, but Wofford I could see them being alright. Kentucky and Abigail Christian, I think Kentucky East is going to win this one. So when it comes to Iowa State and Houston, I think Houston is going to make a run for it, and I think Houston's going to beat Iowa State here. And Wofford and Kentucky, I mean, Kentucky is not as... They're not as good as they used to be because they always would get the top players every single year. But because they haven't done that this year, they haven't been as explosive as they usually are. But when it comes to the tournament, I could see Kentucky or Wofford winning. I mean, just like with this over here in Nevada and Michigan, I could see Wofford and Kentucky being a toss-up. But I could see Kentucky winning that game. And Houston versus Kentucky, I'm really thinking Houston can do good. So I'm going to go with Houston here. And North Carolina versus Auburn, I'm going North Carolina here. And for my final match for the Midwest, North Carolina is moving to the Final Four once again. North Carolina is always one of those teams where you could easily bet that they are going to make it to the tournament. And you could easily see North Carolina going that far. So, with that being said, North Carolina is almost always going to make it to the Final Four from what I've seen in the recent past years. With Tennessee and North Carolina, I think Tennessee is going to be explosive in this game. But after playing against Virginia, do I see Tennessee beating North Carolina? The answer to that is I don't quite think so here because really I could see like Tennessee and North Carolina being a very interesting game. And with that, but then again, I don't think Tennessee can win this. I think North Carolina is going to make it to the championship again. And we have Duke versus North Carolina, the Battle of North Carolina. And I think North Carolina is not going to win this. I think Duke is going to go all the way. And I'm going to pick Duke to be the national champion for 2019. For the tiebreaker, I can see this game going really, really far. I can see this going into the 70-80 range. I'm going to the 70 range, and I'm going to say the game is going to be probably 73-70 or 71. I could see them probably winning on a three-pointer, or I don't think they'll win on a two-pointer because it usually never wins on a two-pointer. It usually goes down to 3 points. So I think to be safe, I'm probably going to take this down a notch, and I'm going to go with... see, 72. So I'm going to go 72-69 because if there's not that many two-pointers, whoa. I can see 72-69 being real because if you go by threes, you have 30, 33, 36, 39, 60, 63, 66, 69, 72. So I'm going to go 72-69 and Duke's going to win by 3 here. And I'll just submit this later, but that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you leave a like. And if you like these type of videos, these random sports videos where I give my predictions for anything, let me know in the comment section down below. And until next time, I'm Major Michael, and I'll see you guys next time. Thumbs up. This is just an outro.